There's people out here that don't have a voice. And me, at the time, being a veteran service officer and dealing with these veterans, I kind of went, who's looking out for these guys? They went and did exactly what they were supposed to be doing. And in the end result is that we don't take care of them after breaking them, bruising them, and battering their bodies.
You're talking about something physical, but what happens when somebody has mental issues, you know, PTSD, or something that they really need help with, and they don't know how to communicate?
In today's world, we can do a claim on stuff that, I didn't even know these things were on the list. So that presumption list, and I tell every veteran, go look it up and see if you got any of those. Get your claim in.
If we have good leadership, we can take initiatives that actually put Floridians, put Americans first, and what their needs are, whether you're a veteran, whether you're a first-time home buyer, whether you're a Gen Z, you need a good job.
Florida Department of Veterans Affairs are underpaid, and I process anywhere from 8 to 15 people a day. So it's a madhouse trying to get that many people through the system. The VA's gotten a lot better with it, but we got some big strides still to get to where we need to be to help these veterans.
Once getting into Congress, I really want to focus on veterans and maybe help with the Veterans Affairs.
Welcome to the Carbonara for Congress podcast, where we address the real issues that affect the lives of people and families who live right here with us in South Florida.
Hi, I'm Michael Carbonara. On today's show, we have John Brodie from City Commissioner of Coconut Creek, District D. So, John, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Thank you. And I just want to talk your background. You've been in the military, you're in the Army, Desert Storm era. Everybody here in the community knows you as the veteran guy, and very in tune to what's going on with things like the VA and some of the things with the military here in Broward County. I was hoping maybe you can talk a little bit about what that means to you, maybe your past in the military, how you ended up at the city commissioner level, and what you're doing for veterans today.
Yeah, I spent 8 years in the Army during Desert Storm, NATO, just traveled the world, lived in Turkey for 4 years, married a beautiful Turkish woman, been married for 33 years with her, moved here to South Florida because this is middle ground. I grew up in San Diego and Istanbul, so this is middle ground.
Okay.
We raised our family here in Coconut Creek, and it's a great city, and watching it all develop and wanting to be part of it. I started up a girls softball program, a girls travel program, did youth sports, did volunteering, different agencies like Tomorrow's Rainbow, which is a organization that helps grieving children once they've lost a loved one. I deal with also with Foundation for Independent Living, which is an adult special needs program in the city. Equestrian therapies, did a lot of volunteering, and then I said, I'm going to kind of parlay this into a commission seat and try to continue to be able to help people.
It seems like you're actually doing quite a bit to help people, and everybody I know loves John Brodie. I mean, I know you're a Republican, but Democrats too. Everybody loves John Brodie, and I think it's because of what you do for the community, and you really do care about the people who live here.
Yeah, I think it also comes down to I'm a regular guy. I'm not, somebody who was groomed to be a politician. I wasn't groomed to be a political person. I was just somebody who had passion, who's a normal guy, who has normal conversations, who's not afraid to point out the flaws in things and, try to do something to fix it. That's just a regular guy kind of feel to me. So
what's working? Now, I know you do work with veterans. We were talking earlier today about the VA, and, that's one thing that it's always a debate. We need to fix the VA. We need to help the veterans. And it seems when we go from one administration to the next, it flip-flops what we're doing as a country to support our veterans. Can you tell us a little bit about, from your personal experience here dealing with the VA and maybe some of the veterans you've been helping, how is the VA today? How's it changed over the years? I mean, how are they servicing the people that actually need help?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I got out of the military, the first thing everybody told you to do was go file for the VA for any kind of compensation for, injuries and things like that. And that was in 1998. And after I got done going through the first part of that process, I said, man, I'm never doing this again. It was such a mess. And it was very humbling to, coming out of the service, to be treated in a way that wasn't, respectful, or in a way that I thought that after 8 years, in combat and all the stuff that we had to do, it was just something that not where I wanted to be dealing with. And now, 30 plus years later, the VA is completely different. How they treat people and how they do the claims now, has completely changed. And I'm put a little information out. There's a thing called the presumption list that deals with things from Vietnam, Korea, Desert Storm, that says if you got these conditions, you can come in and file for them and see if there's a connectivity there to your service. By the way, which happened in 2019, but didn't get released till 2022. So one gentleman that was in office came up with it, and the other gentleman that came after him took credit, which is not exactly how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then, we talked about, the things that happened this year with Trump coming into office for his second term. The very first thing he did to the VA was say 300 days is too long for a claim. 125 days is what you're supposed to have. Now, they're running about 91 days. So they're beating a lot of it as far as getting the claims to process quickly. So it's kind of nice that, somebody's out there looking for us and isn't trying to, pound the drum saying, look what I'm doing. They're just doing it. In today's world, we can do a claim on stuff that, I didn't even know these things were on a list. And so that presumption list, and I tell every veteran, go look it up and see if you got any of those. And come on in and see a VSO, Veteran Service Officer, and, get your claim in. There's a lot of things that are on that list, and I'm going to tell you right now, I filed probably this time last year, maybe had 6 things. After looking at the presumption list, I actually filed 21 different things.
Oh, wow.
So there's all these things that are on there. And it's a little bit of a fight. It took almost a year to get to 100% disabled, which I am right now.
But why is it a fight? Why does it have to be a fight?
So I think what it is we work in a world where we don't want to spend the money, where we don't want to have to do things that we don't have to do.
Can I ask, we see a lot of fraud in healthcare. We see a lot of fraud going on in the daycares in Minneapolis. Fraud in Obamacare here in South Florida is the biggest in the country. Are we seeing fraud from veterans at the VA?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the reason why they're taking a little bit more of a step back and making sure the claims are valid.
These are people that are veterans. They went and they fought. They deserve to have treatment, but, I can't imagine the fraud on some scale where they have to take a year, the guy that served 8 years in Desert Storm, and, you're well known in the community. How are they treating you like that?
Well, so that was the fun part about this whole procedure, because I didn't tell them who I was. I didn't say I was an elected official. I didn't do any of that because, to be honest with you, I want to be a normal guy. And
sure.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I take my commissioner seat with a bit of a chuckle and a smile, because I don't have an ego, so I don't really care about the title. I just want to help people. So when I went in there, I didn't go around telling everybody I was a city commissioner. And what I did is I went in as a regular vet, and it was enlightening to say the least. There are things that they do really, really well at the VA. And there are things that it's a tragedy that the vets have to go through it to begin with. For myself, and I can speak to myself on this because I'm going through it now. When I went in, I was having some issues going to the bathroom, and so I needed somebody to look at me. So I wanted a urologist. And when I went in to do the ultrasound, they found a tumor in my bladder. Now, I've never been sick. I didn't miss a day of work in 14 years. So I was kind of out of my comfort level with this. Like, I don't know what this is. Yeah. So I did my research and figured it out and knew right away that I was looking down the barrel of cancer. But then the real shock wasn't that it was the cancer. It was the way that they kind of told me about it. And it wasn't like, hey, Mr. Brodie, you got cancer. We can do all these things. The guy walks in, looks at me exasperatedly, and goes, yeah, you got cancer. And he sits down in his chair like the weight of the world, and he goes, what do you want me to do about it? And I'm sitting there thinking, there's veterans that don't have a voice, and this guy just kind of slapped you in the face. And I was on my heels a little bit, and thank God my wife is there, because she goes, you know what, we're going to Cleveland Clinic tomorrow. And that's when they said, well, there's community care, so we can't get to you. We can send you to community care, because I couldn't get seen. What's
community care?
Community care is when you can go out to like Cleveland Clinic or Baptist Hospital and get treatments outside in the community rather than through the VA.
And it's still some coverage there?
It's 100% covered. I haven't paid a dime.
Okay.
It's covered 100% by the VA. I'm service connected with the cancer. I worked at a nuke base. I was working in nuclear weapons bunkers, and so I got exposure. And so they the idea here was that this guy didn't seem to really kind of care whether it was telling. I was sitting there, and that was a little bit of a duck on water because I don't react, I respond. And so I didn't really show my face and my hand, but I was fuming. And as we were walking back to the car, and my wife's going, "Is that normal?" And I'm like, "No, that's not normal." And so we kind of, I got in the car and I thought about it, and I said, you know what? There's people out here that don't have a voice. And me, at the time, being a veteran service officer and dealing with these veterans, I kind of went, who's looking out for these guys?
Yeah, there must be some advocates. You need that advocate because, I mean, number one, I see military guys, guys in general, military guys especially, they're very reluctant to talk about their problems, or if they're not less than perfect, or if they're, they need help. Most men don't like to do that. And you're talking about something physical, but what happens when somebody has mental issues,
right.
PTSD, or something that they really need help with, and they don't know how to communicate?
Right, and that happened. My neighbor down the street was a Vietnam era guy, was in the bush, saw tons of stuff, and I've heard of stories. I've known him now for about 15 years, and he was not being treated at the VA for PTSD. And I kept saying, "Hey man, you got to go talk to these guys," So he finally got in there, started doing it, and pressed, "I got a problem." Mm-hmm. Now I knew once he got in there, they're going to see him, and they're going to go, "Yeah, there's an issue here." And sure enough, he gets in there, immediately diagnosed him, immediately started putting him through counseling, him and his wife, and now he's a totally different guy. You walk him in the street, he's not
at that age. He
yeah.
still had that time to improve himself.
Right.
Because you would think at an older age, people would be reluctant to change.
Yeah, and you see a lot of that, especially military people, because we're kind of stubborn. We're battle guys. We were going to fight our way through it our way.
Yeah.
Because we survived combat. We're going to survive this.
I was at an Heal Our Heroes event recently for veterans. And, that was, they're a group that tries to help people, veterans coming back from combat who have, issues, mental illness, trying to prevent veteran suicide. And, that's a real issue because they're also not seeking help. And there's right now 22 veterans every single day are committing suicide.
Right.
And I think it's not just the veterans, but everybody their families, their friends, their kids, their wives, their husbands. It affects entire communities. And so veterans are just so important. But I feel like, every other administration, and, I'm not going to say which party, but, they feel like they're kind of just forgotten, pushed aside, like they don't matter anymore. When, they've given so much for our country, and, they're educated in real world. They have a lot that they can be contributing, but they're kind of, to me, just push it aside. And, you see veteran homelessness, veteran suicide. And when they go on the VA, maybe they have help, maybe they don't. But I think that there's room for improvement all around.
Yeah, there is. And the problem we run into is there's categories of veterans in need. You have the ones that don't want any help. And we see a lot more in the boomer generations where they don't want help. They don't want to seem weak. And the truth of the matter is they need help just like anybody else, but they're harder to admit that they have an issue. As we get into more like the Gen X and M, you see people just trying to do their best, but people my age, they get frustrated too quickly. And they're like, well, if they're not going to help me, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, it's a battle. Just like it was in combat, you got the battle of fighting the VA, which we shouldn't have to. But, it's interesting when you say the 22. There's an interesting stat when you break those down. Where would you think the largest number of suicides would be? What age group?
I mean, I would think the younger guys would be more likely.
Nope. The older generation, the 72 and older, have the highest rate of suicides.
Wow.
Second is the 55 to 72.
Interesting.
And then you talk about the
Is
young
it
guys.
physical ailments or is it mental?
They're
people can't deal with the pain.
Yeah, they don't want to do it anymore. They're frustrated. They're not getting help. Some of them, we start combining that with drug and alcohol abuse. So it compiles because they feel there's no hope. There's nobody that understands them, which is not true. I'm going through PTSD counseling myself, and the help is there, but a lot of times it makes it so hard sometimes to get there to do it. The VA's gotten a lot better with it, but we got some big strides still to get to where we need to be to help these veterans, because even if we have a drug rehabilitation program, which they do, and they actually have a place we call the dorm, and in the DOM, sorry, not dorm, DOM, in the DOM, it's where you can come and get drug rehabilitated for 45 days. You live in a controlled environment, And we would see a lot of them coming over to us in the claims department to do claims because they started realizing these guys don't have the claims to pay for their own treatments. And so our job was to try to get them the claims as quickly as possible. Now, in that DOM, you probably looked at about a 95% homeless rate on top of that.
Wow.
So there's some real issues when it comes to the veterans and their health. And in Florida alone, we have 1.4 million veterans. And that's a huge on-take of trying to get the veterans to understand what they need to do, get the VA to understand what they need to do. And just like a little sidekick here, a little side note, we have VSOs that are underpaid. It makes it harder. The Florida Department of Veterans Affairs are underpaid. They're making probably $40,000 a year to process, and I process anywhere from 8 to 15 people a day. So it's a madhouse, and you're only really doing it within 6 hours. So it's a madhouse trying to get that many people through the system. And so they're understaffed, they're underpaid. That's the beginning problem because that's the first intake area that you have with a veteran.
Yeah.
And then you start looking at the VA. There's a lot of chiefs and not enough Indians. So, what they were doing by cutting some of the staff back in the VA actually streamlined it because there's less people that would have to approve things. So,
I see.
yeah, so that was a big achievement there to help the process go through because there's less people to pushing buttons.
Yeah.
But, it's a shame when we sit here, we told these guys to go fight for our country. They went and did exactly what they were supposed to be doing. And in the end result is that we don't take care of them after breaking them, bruising them, and battering their bodies, both mentally and physically.
Yeah, I mean, once getting into Congress, I really want to focus on veterans and maybe help with the Veterans Affairs. What would you like to see happen? What improvements could the VA have today?
So there's a couple things. If you were ever to see what I have to see with the VA documents, there's about 150 documents. And the reason why the VA system, because the VA can't write its own claims, right? Because they're the ones paying out, so there's a conflict. So it's up to the veteran or an outside third party, which is either the state or some other organizations like DAV and Foreign Legion. There's not enough intake for this. There's too many documents to make it convoluted for the veterans to deal with. They're coming to us because those documents, it's military jargon. They're complicated, long. If you miss one box, they reject it. And I'll give you an example. So
they're basically, the system incentivizes rejection rather than helping people proactively.
So our first-time failure rate was extremely high. A first-time failure rate usually ran about 60%. And that's not saying the other 40% was approval. The other 40% was made up of 0%, which means they acknowledge it, but they're not going to pay you for it. It was defers, which meant, we're kicking a can down the road for a little bit longer. And then by the time you got to the percentages, you saw people that have, serious conditions being disapproved, cancers.
Yeah.
People that were in Agent Orange, people that were in the burn pits.
Yeah. No, this is terrible. I mean, we have Republicans and Democrats fighting about this. We had the whole government shutdown about this. They wanted to pass an additional $1.5 trillion to give free health insurance for illegals, able-bodied people who refuse to work. Meanwhile, people who actually need it, Americans who fought for our country, can't get the help they need. I mean, the whole system needs to be rewritten, to me. I mean, it's broken.
Well, see, that's when we need people like you in there, because people need to understand what is really going on. And I'm the guy that's going to tell you that a lot of the Congress people, in Washington, D.C., they're institutionalized. I mean, they've been doing it so long, they don't even realize they're not impacting any residents with the stuff that they're doing. And this whole thing of I'm red and I'm blue and we're going to dig our heels in and not come up with a compromise of something. Well, the only ones that get punished by that are us, the citizens, because there's no compromise. Let's talk what's best for the country, what's best for people. And when it comes to the veterans, listen, World War II guys are dying out. They're aging out.
Yeah.
The Korean guys, same thing, and so is Vietnam. These guys are aging out. We're not helping them properly, especially the Vietnam guys. They were never welcomed home. Now we're telling them, well, now you're going to go to the VA, and we may help you. It may take 6, 8, 9 months. Some of them don't have that long. And what happens is people don't understand that your VA benefits also, there's things that your family can get from filing. But the process takes so long. It's so complicated. We need people like you to get in there.
We're going to simplify that process and make it, no legally jargon. Like, military guy, they're in the military. They're fighters. They're blue collar guys. They're not necessarily lawyers. I mean, some might be down the road, but it needs to be simplified for people just to get help when they need help.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, when it comes to officers versus enlisted, so you're talking somebody with a college degree as an officer, and most people that were enlisted do not have college degrees. I saw probably in 9 months 3 officers. So what we're talking about is the people that need the help the most, that are, are struggling day to day. They're rolling their sleeves up trying to make it. The ones that are having the drug addictions and the alcohol because they have the PTSD, and that's the only way, the cheapest way, fastest way they can treat it, which is not treating it.
It's masking it. Yeah.
So we need some people in there to go up and fight for that, for our veterans, and make sure the people that kept us safe, that we do something in return to keep them, safe. And I think getting good politicians in there to understand what the big goal is and not what the selfish goal is. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think somebody could help us out with that.
I appreciate that, and I do want to fight for the veterans. My grandfather fought in the Korean War. His brother was in the Air Force, World War II. My uncle, his brother-in-law, Army, World War II, stormed the beaches of Normandy. So I grew up around military guys, kind of that greatest generation. I mean, my grandfather was a patriarch of my family, so that was very impactful when I was young, and that kind of created my value system, seeing that, he had the Semper Fi Marine Corps flag raising every morning. So I get it. But I think what we have now, it's career politicians, and there's so much focus on money, saving money, spending money, making money. And I think capitalism is the greatest form of economy in the world. I'm a capitalist. I'm an entrepreneur. But once you start making money, that's the method. But once you actually become successful with money, it's all about quality of life. What do you do with that money after you make it? Do you want to just make money to make money, or do you want to improve the quality of life of the people of this country? And the more quality people have, the better they are, the more productive they're going to be, because we're all part of the same country, and if we all can contribute. But if half the country or more or less behind, they're not participating, they don't have a stake in the future, then it helps nobody.
Right, and it's I guess because I've been on every side of this now. I've been the civilian, I've been the Army guy, and now politician, and working with the veterans. You kind of get real rounded in understanding who's looking out for what. And it's hard to sit back and go, I can't help but point fingers in about 1,000 different directions. Now, the new VA director, he's trying to do a lot of stuff, but he needs help from Congress. He needs help from the Senate to pass some things through and push it. And I'm sure if something was put in front of the president, he would sign it. The problem is getting Congress to understand that they sleep good at night because they're protected by the people that they're ignoring right now.
Yeah.
And as we look at the soldiers coming out, my son-in-law's a lieutenant in the Army. He's in Korea. He's coming back next month. And, I'm giving him advice. Hey, man, make sure you file this. Make sure you do this.
Yeah.
Because I know what it's like when you get out and you go from...
You got to be the squeaky wheel. I mean, if you don't, you'll get ignored.
Yeah. Well, you come out and you got a structured life, right? They don't tell you when to eat, when to go to the bathroom, when to sleep, and so you get out of that and you're just lost to this world and there's no direction. And I'm going to be honest with you, half the time when you go to somebody, they're going to give you a thing, and it's basically to get you out of their door, and that's the problem with the VA. There's so many people and not enough staff to help do this. And really what we're talking about is money. The budgets need to be in a way that they're staffed properly, that we can get them through medical examinations.
Well, simplifying the process, using technology to automate some of the processes allows people, you can have less administrators and more people that are actually doctors and healing. We can automate a lot of that busy work, because what it comes down to is how much time do you have with the doctor? And that's what we need to maximize. Put the money in actually people that are treating, not the administration. Because administration is actually, but I can tell you from my background, I'm a technologist. Technology solves administration, and you can do that at scale and get rid of basically bloat and people that aren't actually contributing to the end goal of helping the veterans.
Right. And listen, these are not guys that are going around begging for things. You're not, well, they do, but they don't. They're funny people, because if they think there's somebody that's going to help them, they'll run down that road. And what we end up finding out is, it's no different than a high school you know, with the gossip, right? One guy sits in an appointment and says, hey, I heard this was happening.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you got 6 guys in the waiting room asking about something that's not true. So a lot of time we're running, trying to help people with stuff, and there's misinformation. There's, we used to call them barracks lawyers. They think they know everything. They're trying to coach these guys. And they're like, look, man, there's one way to do
Armchair quarterbacking.
Yeah. Go ask for this, you know.
Yeah.
I always joke around with everybody because it seems everybody in the military now has a prostate issue. So, because one guy in an office said that's a thing, and it's not always a thing.
Yeah.
There's qualifications for a lot of this stuff.
Well,
so,
people are trying to point to something. What's my problem? And they're trying to like, oh, that sounds great. I'll have that one.
Yeah. And it's, you know, and here's the thing. We see the fraud on that end of it too. When it talks to the veteran, because there's people always trying to maneuver and make the system just like anywhere else. You know, it's just as flawed as any other government program. So sometimes, I'll give you an example. Back in, I think it was July of last year, there was a guy who had 100% permanent and total disability from the VA. Mm-hmm. Well, you're not going to keep that if you're doing videos working out in a gym that you own.
Yeah.
So he's posting all these videos. He's doing training with people. He's supposed to have a bad back. And there's nothing wrong with this guy. So there is fraud.
He's an opportunist, of course. I mean, there's fraud everywhere. I mean, the best thing to do is just try to minimize it, but you still have the majority of the people that are actually genuinely need help. If you're on, I mean, I don't know if this varies per person. If somebody's on total disability from the VA, what kind of compensation would the average person get on that? Is that sustainable to live on?
So, and this is all stuff you can look up, so it's not, you're not digging any personal into my matter.
Yeah, okay.
This is all transparency with the VA. If you're 100% P&T, you get $4,616 and think 23 cents a month. Not a bad check. And
then that's
gross. 100%. Yeah.
And so after
you
tax,
don't pay taxes.
Okay, so it's about $48K a year.
Yeah. So it's not a bad lump of sum coming in. Can you sustain it? Yeah, but sometimes these guys they're doing other jobs.
Yeah.
So 100% disability with the VA doesn't mean you can't work. It just means that you can't do the things that you're disabled to do. So if I got a bad knee, you know, I can't be over there doing leg press or, you know, doing those kind of things. But I could certainly work. And like I said, I was working with the VA, so it wasn't like I wasn't working. So it's one of those things where they can get the money. It helps offset costs, especially here in Florida. Things have gotten kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, there was a recent poll, I don't know if it was a poll or study done. So the average household to just maintain basic living in the state of Florida is about $210,000 a year.
Yeah. And I believe it. My wife, you know, at one point I was working 2 jobs. You know, I'm a city commissioner, which I get paid for. Mm-hmm. And then working at the VA. And then my wife was working.
Yeah.
And we own our, well, I don't say we own our house, but we're down to about $100,000 left on the house. And our interest rate's low because we've been paying for 20 years.
Yeah.
And so you kind of look at it and go, we're in a spot where that was okay. But I look at my son, who works for the city of Deerfield, and I go, I don't know how he's going to afford a house.
No, we have a whole generation that's in trouble.
Yeah. And listeners, the millennials made a decision. Home buying was in a rut because they didn't want to deal with grass. They didn't want to deal with plants. They didn't want to deal with all that stuff. They wanted to go home, sit in their apartment or their condo, and not have to do the extra stuff houses, you know, entail. And so there's a different mindset with that generation. But the Gen Zs are looking as they want their place. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how they're going to do that.
They're not going to do it in the current state of things, that's for sure. And, you know, I talk about this. That's why we saw Mamdani win New York, is because we had a whole generation of people that are lost and they don't see a future. And they chose socialism over freedom because they didn't know what freedom actually looked like. And they don't know what those options are. Because we have to fix the things to allow the freedom to occur in this country. We need to give them economic opportunity. We need safety. We can't have gangs and open borders and fentanyl on the street. I mean, we've basically created an environment where it's impossible to survive the next generation. Housing is expensive. All of our products have gone up in price. Our food, everything's expensive. You know, now we're talking about BlackRock, Blackstone, all these big, huge, multi-billion-dollar, BlackRock, maybe trillion, Blackstone, a couple trillion under management. They're buying up all the single-family homes and making a nation of renters, and they're creating artificial demand, making homes even more expensive. So I saw Trump recently, put out a message saying he was going to address that, which I think is going to be a key issue, because there's no reason for BlackRock to be competing with the average American to have a single-family home. It makes no sense. It's a monopoly against American citizens.
And it's funny you say that, because 3 years ago when I was running for office, the questions we got asked was affordable housing. And you went, well, at that time, the houses were affordable.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you and I said, here's a caveat. You could buy the house, but you can't afford the insurance. You could buy the house, but you can't afford the taxes.
Yeah.
You can't afford the HOA fees or COA fees. That's where you lose your home. Well, now I can't even say that, because the housing cost has gone up, because they were buying the houses, choking out the market, so making a false demand. Because we understand cause and effect here, in supply and demand. That's the economics 101. It's supply and demand. Well,
right.
We have a tremendous amount of demand and not enough supply. There's not enough homes in our area. And we talk about people moving to Florida. We talk about and my number might be off about a year, but it was about 1,240 people a day. And then you minus out people who die, because this is Florida, and then people who move away. Yeah. All right, so it's about an average about 830 to 840 people a day moving to Florida. That's 255,000 people a year. Where are you putting them? It's not the inventory.
No, and most of the new homes come for sale in Florida are 52% are bought by foreigners. They're not being bought by Floridians. And you have, if you want to buy a condo in the United States, you'd be a first-time home buyer, go to FHA, pay 3.5% down. But not in Florida. If you want to buy a condo in Florida, because of the insurance, they require 25% down. Again, make it unaffordable for the next generation.
Right, and on top of that, now we have all the condo regulations that's going into effect to try to fix the condos because of the Ball Harbor incident. Well, those HOAs and COAs didn't put money aside.
No. They
kicked the can down the road. They try to keep everything affordable rather than understanding that things are going to go up, costs go up. Well, guess what? They don't have any money to do any of the repairs that's now, or the engineering that has to go into it. So now you walking into a condo, or you have a condo, and you're getting assessed $12,000 to $15,000. Most people can't afford to do that.
No.
So what do you do?
It's pretty bad, but the thing is, I think we've identified a lot of the problems, which obviously is the most important thing. Is once we identify it, then we can address it. We can address all these things. There's answers to every one of these things. We don't have to be caught off guard and actually lose the next generation. We can actually fix these things and make it affordable. It just takes people, good leadership, taking initiative, getting things passed. I don't think we've had that. I mean, especially in my district, Debbie Wasserman Schultz has not been a good leader. I mean, she's on the committee for Veterans Affairs. I don't think she's been good there. But if we have good leadership, we can take initiatives that actually put Floridians, put Americans first, and what their needs are, whether you're a veteran, whether you're a first-time home buyer, whether you're Gen Z, you need a good job, but the market's not there. There's plenty of tools for us to do. The thing is, I think maybe many people in leadership roles aren't incentivized to do those because they're just focused on staying in office. And let's be honest, they're all insider stock trading.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that's the most, it's hard as a politician to hear the stuff that gets said to us.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are a lot of us that are not corrupt. There's a lot of us that just want to do good things for the people around us and make our community better and have a quality of life for the people that we represent. And when you're up there doing stocks that I can't afford to do, when you're up there buying properties I can't afford to buy off of somebody else's money, when you look at the career politicians, and Debbie's one of them. Debbie's one of those people. Then she just flip-flopped. I think they're not in touch with what is really going on. All they care about is either having a political fight, which doesn't help anybody, rather than the fight for the people. I used to be a firm believer that, hey, we're going to give people a chance, but I'm at the point now where I want action. And
I think the whole country has the same sentiment. Everybody's sick and tired. I mean, it's like it's just brain drain for the last 10 plus years, right? I mean, everybody is just tired of the rhetoric. Everybody's paying attention to politics for the first time, really. The last 10 years, everybody's seeing what's happening in real time. Social media is catching the fraud, the corruption in real time, and now we have all the audits going on in the government. We're finally, for the first time. I mean, we always knew there was fraud or corruption. But I think even during COVID, it was accelerated. During the USAID audits, was accelerated. That the corruption was many, many times bigger than we expected at a dollar amount, and it's coordinated. Everybody's protecting themselves.
Well, I think when Doge got involved last year and we started seeing those numbers, I think people knew it was going on, but the numbers seemed almost unbelievably high.
It's crazy because most of that was going to NGOs and outside this country when we have plenty of problems. We have affordability problem. We have veterans that need help. We have kids that have student loan debt that they'll never be able to pay off because they were tricked into going to college and taking on this debt, and they didn't realize that they'd have to pay off for 30, 40 years instead of getting a mortgage.
Yeah, and I think, we've gotten better over the last year. I think things have settled down. Kind of excited to see what else was going to happen. But we shouldn't have to wait for a majority in the House or Senate to do this. It should be that the people that we're putting in there understand why they're there. They're there to represent a community at a federal level. I wish I could say that I look at our federal people and I go, wow, they're doing such a great job. But we're not. There's so much more we can do.
Let me ask you, is there anybody that you could say is doing a great job? Not to put you on the spot, but
well, so
if you have one person that's in Congress today, who would you say is doing a good job?
So I'm a big fan of Rick Scott.
Okay.
I think Rick does, and he's a veteran. So him being a governor, and then you get DeSantis, you get back-to-back veterans running the state. Our veterans program statewide is pretty sound. Rick Scott, our background there is he ran HCA as a CFO. My wife was a nurse in the HCA system. And so we got to see a lot of what he did taking care of the nurses. Well, when he left and became governor and when he became a senator, I deal a lot with the police forces. Mm-hmm. I ran businesses, so we had a police in there. And every one of the stories I ever heard a police officer tell was like, yeah, we were guarding them. We were doing a detail, and he brought out, food for us, from inside, like at Trump's place. Mar-a-Lago, they bring food out to us and give us these great food and really take care of us and make sure that we were, So that's leadership because it's not, he didn't do that publicly. He didn't go out there and say, hey, look what I did.
Yeah, it was the right thing to do.
It was the right thing to do. And that kind of weighed a lot with me of how we should be as a politician. We take pictures and we do all that fun stuff. But to be honest with you, our job is to look out for everybody. It doesn't matter how low down on the totem pole they are or how high up they are. Our job is to make sure that everybody that's under our control, that we're making sure the quality of life is there. Rick has really put that out there. I hope I'm not being disrespectful to him by calling him Rick, but it's a way of being able to say that guy looked out for everybody. Yeah. He's not pounding his drum saying, look at what I did. So I kind of like him. Tom Cotton's another one I've met and kind of enjoy watching him go to town on some people. Marco Rubio is also, he's an interesting character. Marco, he met him a few times. Of course, we joke around about the daylight saving times with him, which I think is a great idea too. I mean, we're Florida.
Yeah,
we make money on tourism. It would benefit us.
It's good for Florida. I grew up in New York and upstate New York, and it's some dark winters when you get out of school, you do your sports practice, and you head home at like 3:30, 4 o'clock sometimes, and it's pitch dark out. You get to appreciate it then, but down here, it's understandable that you don't necessarily need it.
Yeah, so there's some things I think they have some good ideas, the fun ideas. That's more of a fun idea than anything else. But because I love the sun, so I'd rather have more sun. So there's some guys that you look at there and you kind of go, the Kennedy from the Virginia. That guy cracks me up. He's got no edit mode whatsoever. I love it.
John Kennedy. Yeah. He doesn't hold anything back. He's got a witty sense of humor. Yeah, it's entertaining to say the least.
Well, we were talking about being able to kind of be on the top of your head when you're in a room and say stuff. That guy is always knowing exactly what he's going to say.
He comes prepared for sure. Yeah, and he finds a way to bring humor at it or to use humor to show how absurd things are.
Yeah. And so there's some guys up there I kind of like. The state level, too, there's a lot of guys I like. Like I was just at the DeSantis briefing the other day for the insurance.
Yeah.
And I like Ron DeSantis. I think, he's got a lot of good stuff. I think he's been good with the state.
I think he's been good for the state. I think most people, Republican, Democrat, appreciate what Ron DeSantis did for Florida, especially keeping us open during COVID. We were able to show the rest of the country that, this is how you run a state. We can be economic prosperous, we can have freedom here, and the whole country shut down besides Florida.
Right. And when you're running a business here, as you know, my gym was closed for about 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was going every day and working out. I didn't care what the rules were. I was like, I'm working out. So, there was a moment where I was kind of like, it's going to really weigh heavy on people. And with him keeping everything open and, trying to keep certain people from basically isolating everybody from, when they did that, it kind of separated the country. By nature, humans are a group.
We have a hive mentality.
Yeah, we need to be together. And when you start saying you can't touch, you can't hug, you got to be 6 feet away.
Yeah, we got to be around and communicate.
That did more harm, I think, socially for everybody.
I think a lot of the young kids are still paying for it. You had slower speech development, a lot of kids wearing the mask, not understanding how to communicate properly. And a lot of kids kept on wearing the mask because they were so socially awkward, they didn't know how to be around people normally.
Yeah. And, for me, personally, it hurt. My son, straight A student, highly intelligent, scored off the chart, was in the top 1% on the SAT exam. And school was his thing. So what happens? He graduated 2020. We get to drive around the neighborhood honking horns, right? It wasn't a graduation. It was almost like it was stolen from him.
It was stolen, absolutely, yeah. And, that's one thing. I don't know how anybody in Congress could have let that happen. Why didn't we pass regulation? Why didn't we overrule Fauci telling us we can't leave our houses? I think that is the absolute most, the one point where America lost its freedoms. Like, it completely lost its freedoms. We were being censored online. The feds told Facebook and Twitter, you can't talk about this. When it was actually facts, they were shutting down. It's no different. Recently I had an interview with a woman basically gave an interview concealing her identity in Venezuela because they had no freedom of speech, and she was worried that by talking to me that her family would be taken away. And that's what happened during COVID. The feds told them, you cannot talk about this. You will be arrested if you say anything against the COVID narrative. So we had the most amount of tyranny you could imagine. It was no different than the Castro or Maduro regime saying, if you say this, you're going to jail. Because that's what happened here.
Yeah, and you turn around, you look at exactly what happened in Soviet Union and in Germany was happening here. People ratting their neighbors out.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Over a social thing. They have 6 people. Oh, there were 6 people. You're only supposed to have 5. It was such a... And you go, I can totally understand how those events happen because we witnessed just the tip of that.
There was also like a mass psychological programming or brainwashing, if you want to call it that, because a couple of times I had friends that, I would say middle of COVID, they came down to Florida and they didn't know how to react. They're like, what are you guys doing? You leaving your house? You can go to the store? You can go in public? And they didn't feel comfortable. They were basically in isolation for so long, they forgot what freedom was in such a little bit of time.
Yeah,
it was scary. Yeah.
I think, we need to remember how it happened, and understand we never let ourselves get back in that same situation.
So, this is something that's really fundamental. Everybody, the mainstream media, call it the leadership, the powers that be, they rule by fear. That's all media is. It's pharmaceutical advertisements and fear, fear, fear. There's not enough money. There's no housing. We can't go to war. There's war. Don't leave your house. Everything is about all the negativity, and we're basically programmed to never take a chance, to never step up, to never lead, to never do good. Like, we're told, if you do this, it's the end of the world. And us, the whole world's under that type of mentality that we're basically imprisoning ourselves because we're in constant fear. And for me, I believe in abundance. Like, we have plenty of resources in this country. There's plenty of money out there to pay for veterans. There's plenty of freedom right here, but we have to break those chains of imprisonment, of fear that's being propagandized to us 24/7. And with social media, it's even on steroids. So we really need to step back as a humanity and find our foundation. And I think you find that foundation, people need to go back to religion. Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, whatever religion is, it's the fundamental values of life and traditional values. That's the bedrock of who you are as human. Everything else is superficial. And it's great. I love technology. I love social media, but we can't forget who we are, because then we let social media dictate who we are, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny, I grew up, my dad's a pastor for a Wesleyan church in California. And, you kind of look at, because I look at my dad as my leader. My dad, he was the staple of the house. He was the one that gave direction to our house. And during COVID, my 80-year-old dad is sitting out in homeless shelters and parks, speaking with homeless people, no fear of COVID, which I'm like, that's great. So my dad at 80, he's 80.
Just a little side note, I saw a study, the homeless were the least affected by COVID because they were in the sun all day.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's
right?
crazy. Yeah, everybody else stayed in their house, got sick, but the homeless didn't get sick because they have plenty of sun.
Well, the whole thing was silly. You go grocery shopping, and you're wearing a mask and gloves, or you're wearing a mask and you're touching all the stuff and putting it back. And you're spreading germs anyway. This was the dumbest thing. Anyways.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, go ahead.
So my dad was out there working. He works for the homeless. He helps get homeless people off the street. If they need a haircut, he arranges barbers to do that. If they need vouchers to get in hotels, say they're living in a car with a family, that's what he was doing during this whole time. And I'm looking at him going, Dad, aren't you fearing this? He goes, well, if God's going to take me, a mask isn't going to stop it. It was kind of this that kind of cavalier attitude of, I'm going to do what's right, even if it kills me. And
yeah, we need to be guided by our own self, not be guided by propaganda. And it's very easy to let an outside authority tell you how to do things. But that's the issue with government, is that's its job. Government's never benefited anybody. It only takes from you.
Right.
And so it's not incentivized to empower you. And people just need to be grounded in who they are and be critical thinkers in their everyday lives and not just take everything at face value.
Right. And you kind of look at, I just lost my train of thought, but you look at what we went through during that time period and the repercussion we still have on it, right? Mm-hmm. Because what we found when you took everybody away, you took everything away from them, and you said, go home and sit in your house. Well, what we found in the industry I was in was mental illness reared its ugly head. What people were doing up until that point was they were doing all these things to suppress all that. They were going to the gym, they were going to the stores, they were doing stuff, being social. Well, when you took
healthy
it all
distractions.
Away, right.
Yeah.
And you took it all away. And then all of a sudden our mental health issue is tremendously high.
Yeah.
And you start looking at the stuff that was being said online, and the transgenderism, the all the stuff that was going on, and it just bubbled up. And you kind of went, well, that's because we were doing things to keep ourselves distracted and being able to do things that were healthy, and you take it all away, and now you're just left with what's between your ears. And when we opened the gym, it was probably the hardest part of my job I ever had to do was this first 6 months that we opened back up, because the people go in there and they were freaking out,
wiping down every machine 10 times.
They were yelling. We were spraying machines with these. We had to buy.
Yeah, that was a big industry. They were selling all these special things that make it COVID clean and.
Right. I mean, there was a great industries. I mean, from people making masks, we made some good money during that time, and the glove people, the mask people, and I hate governmental overreach, and I think we all have it at each level.
Yeah, I think we lost it so easily, and I think it's one of those things that I feel like so many people already forgot about it, and it's something that is so. I mean, the whole world literally shut down for a year, and I don't think that's never been done in human history. And we can't forget that, because they took all of our freedoms away. They shut down our businesses. They shut down our freedom to speech. They shut down our ability to be with our family. Like, why? And we can never let that happen again.
Right. And listen, we need to get to people like you up and fed so they can have some common sense up there. I listen to the stuff that comes out in the news, and I go, there's no common sense in the stuff they're saying. And I can use a bunch of names, and the list would be long, of the people and they're the ones with the sound bites.
Yeah.
They're the AOCs of the world and the Debbie Schultz of the world, and all these people just have these little sound bites, and none of it's good. Let me give you an example. Alligator Alcatraz. The property was not being used. Now we have a use for it.
Yeah.
And what do? They go out there, I'm with Congress, you have to open the gates. I mean, sometimes I think that we forget who we are. We're just regular people with a title.
Yeah.
I think these people take that title way too serious. And to say I go in there because I'm a congressman or I'm a senator. Well, no, there's still rules. This is still a jail.
You're an employee.
Yeah, you just got voted. You won a popularity contest. All right, that's it. And if you're not taking the title with the tongue-in-cheek approach, you really get into this ego thing. And like I guess for me, I'm always that guy that goes, yeah, it's a good title and everything. I get great parking. Outside of that, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
What's more important is how we help people. And now, I love being at my municipality because I can help 60,000 people intimately. I go to their house, they come to my house, we see each other at restaurants. I'm always available, and you can ask anybody. I'm always available. And I'm also the guy that goes around everywhere. Why? Seek knowledge, right? That's what that is. I'm seeking knowledge on something. But I look at these people that are institutionalized. They've been there 20 years. They don't know any better. They lost contact with actually why they're doing it. They say stuff that I can't possibly think they actually believe because it goes against, A, the Constitution. It goes against humanity. It goes against your best judgment. And it doesn't help people with their quality of life. So I'm at a loss with some of the people I see up there. We talk about term limits, but maybe it's not such a bad idea.
I'm not opposed to it. I just don't know what it should look like. I think Congress, at that level, so here's the thing. Our founding father said Congress, the reason I have it every 2 years is Congress is supposed to come in and reflect the changing times. Senators are supposed to be there for 6 years because they're supposed to be more stable. And I've talked about it before, all for term limits, but you also be careful not to have too much turnover where you lose your stability. Right. There is an answer there, though, I think, and I think we should look at term limits.
Yeah, listen, we have term limits in my city.
Well, even the state of Florida does, too.
Yeah, and listen, is it really hurting anything?
Florida, I think they got a good way with their term limits. It's working.
So when Congress and the Senate, when it was all developed, it was a bunch of farmers and a bunch of guys who ran businesses who said, I can't do this full time. I have a job, I have a career. This is the thing that I'm going to get voted in. We're going to take care of the country for 2 to 4 years, and I'm going to go back to my job and do my thing. That was kind of the concept, that you're always kind of refreshing it and that you weren't burning people out and people weren't becoming career politicians. That was the ideology behind why they were doing that.
Well, there was no insider trading back then, so now there's no incentive to stay longer.
Yeah, they're like, I got back to my cows. But now, these are career politicians. You look at Bernie Sanders. That guy's never worked a job in his life. You look at
neither is Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Yeah, you look at Biden, same thing. None of these guys worked.
Yeah.
And you go, that's a problem. They don't understand what it's like to be threatened to lose your job. You don't understand what downsizing means. You don't understand what global economy impacts that business. When we talk about jobs lost, they talk about it in this abstraction, this kind of abstract way. It's not abstract to the person who just lost their job.
No, they're shorting that stock of that company, and they know what's going on.
Yeah, and you're going, and I'm out of a job, and they made millions of dollars off that short.
Yeah.
And I'm going, okay, well, now what do? I can't feed my family.
To me, that's just such short-term thinking because in business, I've learned you empower people because the more empowered everybody else in the company, the better off they're going to be. If you're just taking, you're destroying your community. What's it good if you're a millionaire and then your whole town is corrupt, violent, you can't walk in the streets? Like, why?
Yeah. Well, it's a self-serving, right? I think when we talk about leadership, real leadership isn't self-serving. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I get a lot of joy out of helping people. So if you're talking if that's the self-serving part, I'm good with that.
Well, it comes full circle. If you're kind to people, it comes back around.
Yeah. And I just think that we, too many times we watch these people and they're in there making these sound bites. And you go, well, that guy's been there 18 years. Does he really know what it's like in his neighborhood? No. Is he going out walking his neighborhood? No. You're not going to see Debbie walking down the street with her dog, in her neighborhood. You're not going to see that. I think the reality is we need people in there that are going to make good decisions, who are looking out for the long run, not the short term. And they need somebody in there that's got common sense. And, I wouldn't be sitting here right now with you if I didn't think you were that guy, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's what I believe in is common sense. And I think there's just so much politics. Everybody's just dying for common sense. They don't want, crazy wars. They don't want money being all over the place. They want to lose their freedom. They just want to live their life. They want to have a job. They want to have a house, their family, and just have a good life. It's really not more complicated than that, but there's just all these complexity layers that politicians add and these huge bills with all the pork, and they slip things in. And one bill might sound like a great idea, but then in order to pass it, and these 50 other congressmen, well, I need my piece, I need my piece, I need my piece. And they'll start inserting it. And then you end up with something that is, you don't even recognize it anymore because there's just so much greed. And at the same time, I understand you're also fighting for your own district. You have to represent what do they want. And I think maybe that process needs to be simplified. Maybe you shouldn't be able to add so much to it on a simple bill, one issue at a time, maybe. Maybe that's the way to do it. Because then you also find out, do they actually believe in freedom? Do they actually want to help people? if it's one issue at a time, then you really find out what this person's all about.
Yeah, and you hit it right there. I think what happens is the quid pro quo. Well, they're adding stuff in, or you rub my back, I'll rub yours. We're gonna make this deal, and then there's so much put into it that it's things. All of a sudden, what was starting out this great project or this great plan, this great bill to help people ends up being this morphed thing that doesn't do anybody any good, and the original one gets wiped out anyways. And they go and fight it, and it gets shot down, and you're stuck with all the stuff underneath it.
Yeah.
And right now we're going into session here in Florida, started this week, and the list of bills is just amazingly long. Now what's going to happen? Yeah, maybe about 25% of them will die on the vine right now.
Yeah.
The other ones will be combined in the others. So you're talking about another, probably 15% of those being combined into other bills. And then we're going to get about 25% of those across the finish line to get to the governor. Now, last year, he hacked away at everything. It was $600 million he hacked out of the budget. It sounds great, but for us, we got buildings that are built in the 80s that are now falling apart. Yeah. That we needed some of that money to offset the cost. And I guess my problem was it was technically our money anyways, because it was tax money. Yeah. And you're going, okay, well, and taxes bother me to begin with, because we pay taxes, and then we got to go beg for our money back under things called grants, which have strings attached to them. So I'm not happy with all that we have to do. But we went to the other side, and we said, hey, look, we need something for our police. So on the federal level, we said, hey, we want these body cameras. Everybody wants body cameras. We need body cameras. We need help. That's $1 million that we need. And we got our $1 million. So now our police are out there safe, right? And that's what this is. This isn't about catching a good cop versus bad cop. This is their safety. Yeah. We're talking about these cameras because they kept saying all these police were doing things, and they found out that's not the truth.
No, I think a lot of people thought the body cams would show how the police are being brutal and violating the law, when it was the complete opposite. It actually vindicated police across the board, and it's been a blessing for the police to have.
Right. And so where did that money come from? Well, it's tax money that we gave to the federal government that they gave back to us with a string attached. Yeah. And so you kind of go, okay, that's one I can say we needed. Was it worth the strings? The strings weren't that bad on that one particularly. But we've had other ones where you go, I got to do all this other stuff. It's going to cost me more money than just paying to solve the problem ourselves. Yeah. So sometimes it becomes a little bit of a muck to deal with, when it comes to tax money. But, when we started talking about what somebody in your position could do for us, by being able to get onto the boards for the veterans, by being able to get on health care boards, be able to get on, all these different, things that you're going to be involved in. We need somebody who's going to be in there and have common sense. I think we're just all tired of hearing sound bites. We're all tired of hearing some crazy politician come out and say some things that just doesn't benefit the people who are voting or the people who have to live under that rule. So we need somebody like you to get in there.
Well, I can tell you, I don't want this to be my lifelong career. I don't want to be there till I'm 80. I want to get in, have meaningful impact, and be there as long as people want me to be there. But I don't want to die in Congress. It's not my goal. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I got asked the same thing, because I'm in a unique situation with my term, and so they asked me how long. I go, as long as people still want me to do this, I'll do it. I have no problem. I don't mind working 16, 17-hour days. This is who I am, built that way. So I've never had any issues with the hours and doing all that stuff. And as long as they want me there, I'll be there. And that's the way to kind of take this, because it gets to the point where you start seeing the desperation of a politician when they're saying all the things. And I'll give you an example. Just a couple of weeks ago, your opponent there flip-flopped on an item, and you went, okay, that's not what the stance that the whole party wanted. Yeah. And that makes it difficult, because then you go, we all see it. We all see that she flip-flopped. But the other side of the aisle, they don't care. They don't care that she flip-flopped. They just care that she holds that seat.
I know Republicans and Democrats. Everybody, I have friends on both sides, all good people. But the Democratic Party in D.C. has completely lost touch with what the party originally represented. And they're elitists. They don't actually believe in anything. And because they don't believe in anything, they can be a chameleon and mold as a single entity on any topic, defensive or offensive. Whereas the Republican Party today is a lot of principles. And, people say, well, the party is never in agreement on anything. It's because everybody in the Republican Party actually has something they stand for, but we all have we all voice it. we all have, and that's okay, and we have that freedom of speech. So it's a good thing and a bad thing, because the Democrats they all get together and they are unified, but they're unified in nothing. They unify whatever the topic is that day, because they don't believe in anything. Republicans are exact opposite, because we believe in so much.
Right, and we see it in our debates when we talk about when we run, the Republican debate versus the Democrat debate. When you run the Republican debate, you could see the integrity. You can see the passion of, when they believe they're in a moral compass and an ethical compass, and everybody's got, and everybody's fine with sharing that. You don't see that on the other side. What you're seeing is, we need to hold the seat, so we'll vote for no matter what kind of crazy thing, as long as it's a Democrat.
Yeah.
And a great example is one election cycle. They elected a guy who had a stroke and a dead guy, just so they can hold the seats. They understand how to play the game, is hold the seat, which is a shame, because for a year, the guy with the stroke wasn't any good to anybody, and the dead guy obviously wasn't good to anybody right off the beginning. So you kind of look at how they play the game versus how we play. We got morals, we got ethical compass. We understand that we all see things sliverly different than each other.
Yeah.
And in the same way, that also hurts us, because, and I've heard this in rooms, during debates. Well, he's not Second Amendment enough for me. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Like, do you understand? You want somebody who represents the Second Amendment and the way it stands in the Constitution. You want somebody who's going to represent the First Amendment and the way it's written in the Constitution.
Yeah.
We understand that not everybody's going to, everybody's got their opinion on those pieces, but really you want the people that's going to understand how to support the Constitution, because that is our backbone. And I went all over the world, and there's no document in the world that is more complete and more powerful than that Constitution. There's slivers of it, but there's also parts that we don't even think about. In England, there's no freedom of speech. If you talk bad about the Queen,
they claim they do, but you're
going to jail.
Yeah.
There was a guy last year who was on Facebook and was in an argument with somebody in the UK about the Queen, and the minute he got into the UK, they shipped him right back. He didn't even get out of the airport.
There's people, that are being talked about immigration to get thrown in the jail in the UK.
Yeah. Well, you can't own property in Japan. Okay, you go to Australia, they don't have a Second Amendment.
No. Oh, definitely not Australia.
So you're looking at this Constitution protects basic rights for us.
They took everybody's guns away in the 90s, and then there was a mass shooting, and their answer is take more guns away.
Yeah.
But the lawful citizens didn't have any guns to begin with.
They couldn't even protect themselves from that incident.
That's just political rhetoric. They were cracking down. Their answer to curtailing criminals is attack free speech and take away your right to defend yourself.
Yeah, that's called socialism. Well, and you look what happened in the UK. UK did the same thing. They took away the guns, and now they have a huge amount of knife incidents where people are being stabbed. Okay, the problem isn't the inanimate object.
No, it's about
mental illness
and holding criminals accountable. They're not arresting the criminals. They're arresting the social media posters.
Right. And you start looking at it going, okay, are you more mad that I like the social media, that I like my Second Amendment?
Yeah.
Or are you more mad that the guy who doesn't like the Second Amendment is out there in Miami shooting people?
There was a really interesting story, and I saw this in the news in Germany. I mean, it's pretty bad in some of these countries. In Germany, this girl got raped, and she posted all about it. She was calling the guy out. It was an immigrant there, and her very stance, you don't talk about immigration. She got more jail time for her talking about who raped her than the guy who actually raped her.
Yeah,
it's
horrible.
What kind of world is that?
But you're starting to see it here too. Okay, we can look at Minnesota for any example you want. All right, they cared about a guy who was doing drugs. It was high on drugs, more than the cop that was in danger of stopping that guy that was on drugs.
Yeah.
You talk about what just happened last weekend? She tried to run a cop down. Okay, where else would you be okay with that? Nowhere. There's nowhere is any country going to say it's okay to run a cop over.
This stuff would never happen, when I was growing up. Like, unheard of.
And so I think there's a moral decline. I think social media has a lot to do with that. And I think that, some political parties play into that to help make that a kind of a noisier than it needs to be, or blur the lines. And I think really the blurring the lines is what they do, because, good people don't do that.
Yeah.
And I don't care what you say. I'm not a moral high-standing person myself with a lot of stuff. I'm just making common sense comments. Good people don't go and shoot people. Good people don't go try to run police officers over with their car. That's not what good people do. That's not what morally sound people do. And you get somebody who is in a weakness and is easy to manipulate, and then you have this outcome. You look at these rioters that's going on in Minnesota. How many of those are immigrants out there rioting and protesting? Look at the pictures. There's a reason why their faces are covered up.
Yeah.
All right, because they're a bunch of white guys and white women out there complaining.
It's all funded by George Soros.
Right.
It's the indivisible group that's behind the No Kings. I've had experience with this. They've doxed me. They come to my property. They came after me. It's all coordinated.
Yeah, and it's horrible. And what do? They make sure the press is there to get every angle of it.
Yeah,
they make sure the bloggers.
It also helps their fundraising. They show the party, look what they're doing to, fight for democracy. They're getting sound bites too, just the same. And it's all about getting more money, and so they can continue the machine and keep going.
Yeah, and it's a shame. We all pay the price for this stuff.
Yeah.
When you allow riots, listen. There's one thing about peaceful protests. You're not seeing peaceful protests out there. That's thugs.
Yeah.
All right. Peaceful protests, and you here in Coral Springs, you saw them go over and they had a protest, and they stayed on the street corner. They didn't block roads, and you went, okay, well that's what it's supposed to be. That's what these protests need to be. They need to be where, yeah, you sit out there in a corner, you protest whatever you feel like.
Yeah.
And you don't hurt anybody. You don't block streets. You don't do this stuff. Hurting
people, being violent because of a political difference is the definition of terrorism.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, and it's tough. We see it all the time, and unfortunately, because there's some sunshine laws and some other stuff here in Florida, it's hard to say things online, and people don't understand it. Well, I may not agree. I may completely disagree with you, but if I have something that's coming up the vote, I can't say nothing. My other colleagues on my dais, they can't know one way I'm leaning on a vote or something coming up. So our hands are a little tied on a lot of times when stuff that we can say and do. But yet, because of the First Amendment, which I'm a big advocate for, they can say whatever they want to, which is great. The problem is when you start lumping me in with somebody who's a criminal politician, I'm going to be a little butthurt about that.
Yeah. Because
I have integrity. I've never taken a dime from anybody. I always make sure that I'm giving more than I'm taking. I make sure I'm available to everybody. I'm doing all this stuff. And when people start throwing these little dots out there to try to, make you look bad, you can't fight it because it makes you look worse. He's just defending himself. You can't win as a politician when it comes to that argument. And you're like, it's a weird thing. Yeah, first of all, being in politics is weird in itself.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, it's a different mentality, a breed of people for sure. But it's enjoyable because a lot of these guys I've become friends with, and they're across the aisle.
Yeah.
They don't think the same way I do, and that's fine. I don't really care about that. In fact, I think it's kind of the reason why I'm doing it, is so that the First Amendment can stay in the forefront, that we can have conversations, real conversations. Yeah. I think the problem we have now is they want to shut us down. They want to shut the conversation down.
Yeah.
In the 80s when Reagan was in, we could have a discussion. We may not agree with it, but that's fine. We walked away. We're still friends. In the 90s, it became name calling. They started calling you names. Then in the 2000s, it started, becoming where they would just trash you and they would do all these things to make you look bad because you had an opinion different than theirs. Right now in 2026, what we talk about now is the violence to politics.
Oh, yeah. You just kind of look far. I mean, Scalise, Rand Paul.
Yeah, and I
look
like
at that violence.
Yeah. I like Scalise. And that was a weird
He was
thing.
shot
Yeah,
for his political opinion.
That was so weird. It was, I think, Mike, the problem is we're not dealing with the mental illness piece correctly.
Yeah.
I'm ex-military.
Well, part of it, I think the statistics, 70% of America is on pharmaceutical drugs right now.
Oh.
So the go-to for any, I won't say any, the majority of psychologists or counselors that are prescribing drugs, you come in, the first thing, they're trained to give you prescription for mental illness. And it's all about, rather than find the root cause, let's find out why you have this issue, how can you address it. It's all masking with pharmaceuticals.
Right.
They all have consequences. Every antidepressant side effect is suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, I saw a stat the other day that all the shooters in the last 5 years were all on medications for mental illness.
I think it's a lot more than 5 years. I think it's pretty much
I
only
20. Back, yeah. I went back 5 years with that. I read the article.
I think wow. I started seeing that stat when it started with Columbine.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, everybody's been on SSRIs.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, even on the labels, it tells you that there's a side effect of suicide and depression.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to be taking to get you out of suicide and prevention is the stuff that makes it worse.
Yeah, and a lot of the mental illness is our modern day lifestyle. I mean, just an example, being out in the sun. I mean, we're very mineral deficient. We're vitamin deficient. We're not having human interactions like we used to. Most of America is vitamin B deficient, which actually controls your mood, and that's because of our commercial farming. We don't have nutrients in our most of the food that we eat. And so a lot of the mental illness issues are because of our lifestyle, and that can all be fixed. It doesn't need to be pharmaceutical intervention. I mean, of course, there are cases that are, but 70% of people in the world are not meant to be on drugs. That's not our species. We're not. We weren't born in this world to need drugs.
Right. Well, so, speaking of that, I shared with you earlier that I'm going through my PTSD treatments in the VA. And one thing I said right off the bat is, I don't want any drugs. And they get like, well, we could take some stuff. No, man, that's not how we're going to do this. I go, maybe other people want to take drugs, but I'm not taking any drugs. I want to be able to go through this and fix it without being cloudy, without something that's going to impact me with a side effect. I mean, I'm already dealing with cancer. I don't want to deal with some side effect of anything else. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm very sensitive now to all this stuff. And a little bit of an argument with my wife, being the nurse she is. There's these readers that they put on your arm that read your blood sugar. And they're like, oh, everybody's doing it now, makes it nice and easy. I go, yeah, but we don't know what that's going to do to you in 5 years. We talk about heavy metals in our water. Well, you're putting heavy metal on that. It's a battery and metal prongs.
Yeah.
So you're putting heavy metals on your body. We don't know what that's going to be like in 5 years. And I guess now that I'm going through what I'm going through, I look at things like that now going, I don't know what's happening 5 years now with whatever you're giving me.
Well, that's also one thing. I'm really glad that RFK Jr. is in the spot that he's at right now, because I think he actually has identified a lot of the drugs that are in our water system, just because when you take pharmaceutical drugs to use the bathroom, that water's recycled. The entire U.S. population is on birth control, whether they realize it or not. And that needs to be fixed, because that has real serious consequences. We have hormone imbalance issues with men and women. We have heavy metal toxicity. I think the statistic I saw is 1/3 of the homeless have heavy metal toxicity, which also causes mental illness and irritability. So addressing our food and the drugs we take and what the exposures we are, mental illness and just the overall health, I think is the foundation to actually being happy, to being productive, and it all starts with what we put in our bodies.
Right, and you go a step further and you start looking at the PFAS. All right, all the plastics that we have in our body.
Yeah.
Thank you, DuPont. Legacy. These are things that are in our bodies. It's in our water now. How do you escape all this?
Yeah.
And last year I was up in Tallahassee, and we were asking the EPA guy, well, how do we deal with this? He goes, until a study is done, we can't do anything. I'm like, why aren't we doing the study then?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why we're waiting. This is not new.
Yeah.
Why are we waiting? This is 2020. This is 2025. I'm like, we didn't do one yet. This is crazy.
I've been a member of the Homesteaders of America for a few years already now, and I completely believe in organic, regenerative farming and having clean food supply, and I think that's really would increase our health, and our mental illness would really back off quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, my wife's feeding me a bunch of stuff now, so I'm the king of soursop. What's the other thing? I'm like eating leaves off of trees out in my backyard. It's the craziest thing, but they work.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm also a diabetic, so there's a tree in my yard. It's called I can't think of the name of it now. It's these little tiny leaves, but you put that in there, and all of a sudden my blood sugar started dropping. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, so it's hard to argue with some of this stuff. So, I think, and besides that, before we go any further, Trump picking JFK was absolutely brilliant. And I'm not saying that because it's a good bipartisan. I mean, that guy's jacked. I mean,
that's true.
Yeah, you're looking at the guy. That's a healthy guy.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. A lot different than his predecessor there. I mean, the guy's in shape.
Yeah, and you go coming out of the gym world, I look at those guys, and you don't get cut like that because you're eating bad. You get cut like that because you're eating the right way. You could lift all the muscle, all the weights in the world. You're not going to look like that. That's because of diet.
Yeah.
Okay, and so who am I going to trust? I'm going to trust the 320-pound guy last time, or do I trust the guy that's jacked, who's gone through a medical condition?
Jacked in the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that guy's doing pull-ups. You see his pull-ups? He was doing them? Holy smoke.
No, he pushed me to shame. I got to change some things up.
Yeah, the last 3 months I haven't been working out very hard, but I mean, obviously there's reasons. But you look at that and you go, that's the guy you want to listen to.
Yeah.
And everybody keeps, and the weirdest thing about it is now the Democrats are going after him. And I watched him, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months ago when he was in front of them, they were tearing him apart.
Yeah.
I go, this is your own guy. And you're tearing him up like this. Why? Because now he's on the administration, but that's your guy on the inside. That's the guy that you wanted at one point to do stuff, and now he's the guy telling you not to do things, and you don't want to listen to him?
Yeah.
Like, would you not going to listen to him if he won the presidency? Is that what's going to happen too? I mean, I don't understand the short-sightedness.
No, I think RFK really has the right mindset for helping Americans. I don't think he's in there for political reasons. I think he's trying his best to actually do the right thing.
Right, and look, I respect a guy that can look like that into that age, because I'm getting close to that age. I'm 56, and I'm like, I don't look anything like that guy. So I can go, it takes work. You can appreciate the work it takes. And you go, I'm going to listen to him because I know what it takes to get that physique. He didn't do that by eating cheeseburgers and milkshakes. He did that because he understood how to eat organic. He understood how to watch what his calorie intake, burn more calories than you intake. That's the number one rule. You look at him, he understood that.
Yeah.
And, when them turning the pyramid upside down.
Yeah. Well, one thing I do hope they start doing, and maybe there's something I can do once I get in there, is I think we need mRNA labeling. And they're really sneaking that into our food supply, and they're not labeling it whatsoever. And they're either putting it directly into the livestock, or they're putting it into the feed that's given to the livestock. And talk about not knowing the consequences. We have no idea what those consequences are going to be like for our generation or our progeny.
So look at this. Ever since we started establishing GMOs, and all the stuff that we started doing to our beef, look at what's going on in society. Look at the mental illness rising. Look at the size of people. I mean, things changed in the last 25, 30 years because they started putting all this stuff into the beef.
Yeah.
And that you're ingesting that. That's not leaving. Those hormones and those proteins that they're modifying are in your body. And you just watch the kids coming out. They're not the same as the kids when I grew up. These are big guys. We gave an awards the other day. We have this thing in our city called Do the Right Thing, where you can nominate a kid that's done something good in a school, elementary through high school, and they get awarded and they get scholarship, money and all this stuff. And two of the kids that came in there, both of them were 6'3", 6'5", about 280, and these guys were beasts. And I went, what's in the water, man? Like, this is just a little tiny Coconut Creek. And, and it used to be you could go, that's an 8-year-old. But I'm going to tell you right now, I couldn't guess one single kid's age at this point. They all just look like, even my grandson's a big kid. At 9 months old, I'm looking at him like, I don't remember babies being this big. I'm like, what the heck's going on in this place?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, things are changing. I mean, look, Barron Trump, he's like 6'9" now.
Oh, yeah, that guy's huge. Yeah.
Jeez, yeah. All right, so change tune a little bit. What's the best way for people to find out more information about you, help you up the future elections, support the veterans?
So all my social medias, I don't turn anybody down.
Okay.
I don't care if they're blue or red, as long as you're a good person. So all my social media is out there. So it's just, look up John Brodie, Coconut Creek, and you'll see all my stuff out there. I'm on, X and all the fun ones because, as a politician, you need to get the voice.
Yeah.
But absolutely, that's probably the best way. Just Google me and look at my social medias and become a fan of John Brodie. I've kind of taken a very strange stance towards my cancer treatments. And, I'm busted up my knees, my back, and everything else from being in the Army. But with the cancer came along, my family and I all sat down and said, we're going to do some special things. Mm-hmm. And we signed up for Cancer Walk, and it was in October. In December, we had a Explorers Run, which benefited a program for our young police cadets. So there was a 5K there we ran. On Sunday, I ran the Duns Run 5K. And then I have the Butterfly Festival, Butterfly Run coming up February 1st.
Okay.
And I am not a runner. But I've walked them with one flag, which is the American flag. And then the other flag, it's a cancer survivor flag.
Mm-hmm.
And so I run with both of those the entire time. So if anybody wants to come join me, I'm the February 1st in Coconut Creek.
I'll come join you.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a good one. Yeah.
Okay. And I got a recommendation after we finish here. Dr. Kuka, he's in our building, the best doctor in the world, natural healer. He's not a oncologist, but I can tell you, he knows how to cure people. He's a brain surgeon, spinal surgeon, osteopath, but he does everything natural now.
Oh, nice.
And I definitely can help you in some ways or another.
Yeah, I got 3 more chemo treatments. I get chemo every Friday. I got 3 more of them, which is kind of the underlying story here. Is I had chemo on Friday and I ran a 5K on Sunday. So yeah, I'm doing everything I can. I'm going to tell you right now, there's 4 things that you always need to do in life: positive attitude, exercise, eat right, and don't be by yourself. You know, we're a society of people. We need to be around people. So don't think you're by yourself. If you think you're by yourself, you give John Brodie a call. I'll come over and hang out with you.
Excellent. All right. One more thing. I just going back, because I just want to get this in too for you. So there's been a lot of studies now that have come out. This guy won the Nobel Prize out of Japan in 2015. Fasting for more than 17 hours makes your body target cancer cells and kill it.
Correct. Yes.
And so you can wipe away that if you do they say do like a 10-day fast, which is very hard. But if you start doing fasting, that could change your life around. I've been doing fasting now for about a year. Totally changed my health around.
Yeah, I'm. Once I get done with the chemo, that's kind of the route I'm going to start doing. It's harder for me because I am a diabetic, so I can go, like say 9 o'clock at night. 12 hours is about the most I've been able to do before I start getting into that panic mode.
Got it.
Low blood sugars, but yeah, I've been trying it too. Listen, cutting my sugars out, eating all the right food. Soursop, never heard of it before. Now I'm eating soursop like every other day. So there's a lot of stuff that people have given us to help fight the cancer. I'm taking ACHH.
I've done a lot of research with that stuff back years ago.
Yeah, and I'm taking cinnamon, and I eat turmeric and magnesium, and I got handfuls of pills I take, and trying to beat this cancer. So
well, good luck with that. I hope you have a recovery and everything goes well. And yeah, I'd love to join you on the run.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on today. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed today's show. It's available on replay, so click the like and subscribe button and forward it around to your friends. Let them get involved too. Remember, to really make your voice heard, you need to vote. Click the link below or scan the QR code to request a vote by mail ballot. Your vote can really make a difference. Thanks again, everyone.